Welcome everyone once again. This is the Spanish Breakfast Show live on YouTooSpain. I am Skatz, as all of you know, and in today's show I'm talking to Chris from Upsticks in Malaga to find out all about how to register your car in Spain after Brexit. Yes, it's 2021 and the world has changed, or has it? We're going to find out shortly. And as usual, you can ask your questions right now in the chat box over there or down there, or if you're not watching live, in the comments below. So please do that, and either way you'll get answers. My lovely wife Liz is once again looking on and will be on the chat under the name YouTube Yoga, so she'll be keeping an eye on the questions in case I miss any, and also giving you the benefit of her wisdom too. So without further ado, let's meet my regular expert. It's Chris from Upsticks. Good morning, Chris.
Morning. How are we doing?
Very, very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Nice and sunny here. How's weather where you are?
I'm not jealous at all. It's actually the sun is out right now. We had a storm yesterday and awful rain all day, awfully windy. I believe you're getting some of it tomorrow.
Are we? I never look at the weather. Yeah. I literally wake up and look outside, and one thing I can't really control, so I don't bother. But that'd be nice. The storm's a welcome break, isn't it? When you
I think you're just going to get kind of the tail end of it, just as it wisps gently across Spain. So I don't think it's going to be too bad. I think temperatures are going to plummet to about 19 degrees or something.
Yeah,
which is like summer in Ireland. So I don't think it's going to affect me when we're over there.
That's good. Excellent.
Brilliant. So we're talking about importing cars permanently, I believe, and getting them all legal over there. So we're not talking about shipping cars over. You don't do that, do you? This is the registration process.
That's right. Yeah. So what I thought I would do was I always try the registration process for cars is really complicated. A lot depends on not only the situation of the car, so where it is and where it was manufactured, etc., and where it's registered. It also depends on the situation of the person who's registering it. So there's so many different combinations of those two things. It's hard to describe, like this is how you register a car. So what I normally do is I break it down into what we call the 3 T's, okay, which is technical, taxes, and traffic code, because essentially they're the 3 stages of registering a vehicle in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just start then, shall I? Just tell you what we do. So
go through the process. Go for it.
So the process, the first part. So obviously, every vehicle that gets registered in Spain has to go through a technical inspection, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, the technical inspection. People who know Spain, I'm sure people are interested in this. They are passed in a place called an ITV station, right? Mm-hmm. So an ITV station is very much like it's where they do like the Spanish MOT, okay? Mm-hmm. But they're autonomously run by. So you've got different companies that are run by the government, which run different ITV stations. So here in Andalusia, for example, it's Verjasa, and Alicante, it's a different company, and other autonomous regions has different government-run companies that run their stations. But each vehicle that gets registered in Spain has to go through this process, and that is to achieve a document called a ficha técnica. Okay, mm-hmm. So the ficha técnica, it's a bit like the Spanish logbook. Mm-hmm. But in Spain, the vehicle, what you need for a vehicle is actually broken down into 2 things. It's broken down into this ficha técnica, which is like a logbook with all the details of the vehicle on it, but it doesn't figure the owner's details. Then at the end, when we talk about tráfico, you register the vehicle and you get this document. It's called a permiso de circulación. Now that is the ownership document. But anyway. Okay. Talking about the ficha. So the ficha técnica, when you go to an ITV test here in Spain to register a vehicle, there are a few requirements depending on the vehicle. So if you've got a EU type approved vehicle, then all you have to do to pass the test, aside from taking your own personal documents, is take a document which is called a certificate of conformity, which you can get from the manufacturer. Mm-hmm. Or a document called a ficha técnica reducida. Now, this document is the equivalent to a certificate of conformity, but it's done by a Spanish technician. So what they do is the ITV centres, is when they get your documents, they won't work off of a logbook or the registration documents for a vehicle. They want to see this to verify basically that the vehicle is what it is. So
Right.
So when you pass your road test, when you go through the test, not only do they do the general inspection to make sure that it's roadworthy, they also do a verification to make sure that the vehicle has got the manufacturer's sticker, it's got the VIN stamp, and it is what it is, basically.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a couple of variants to the theme with the ITV.
As usual.
If you've got a vehicle which is non-EU, i.e. doesn't have a type approval number, you can still register it, but under strict rules. So you can register it if it's for change of residence, because it's your personal belonging and they can't block you bringing that to Spain because it hasn't got a EU type approval. But there are restriction requirements for the paperwork. So you have to go in person and you have to present your residency card, Padron certificate. We should do a live on Padron certificates. That'd be good.
Yeah.
And various other documents just to prove that you have changed your residence to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
The other variant to the theme is historic vehicles. So if you've got a vehicle that's over 30 years old, you can register it here as historic in Spain, which comes with certain benefits of longer periods between ITVs and down the line cheaper insurance, and you get nice verified historic plates. But to be able to do that, you have to register the vehicle historic with the industry department of your autonomous community first, and they give you a verification document which can take up to 6 months. And there's a whole video there as well.
So it's well worth planning ahead for this, because the process could be quite long. And you've only got, is it 6 months from actually taking your car in there to have it registered? Is that right? Or is it less than that?
It depends on your circumstance. I know 6 months, that's a load of rubbish in my opinion. I have to be honest with you. I see that all the time, but in my opinion, that's rubbish. Because you can only be, if you're, for example, the 6 month thing is the confusion with fiscal residency. Now, everybody has their own opinion on this. I'm just going to express mine. So when you become a resident here in Spain, when you bring a vehicle, first of all, as a tourist, all right, you have evidently up to 90 days. That's for EU residents and for non-EU. If you're coming in on Schengen, whichever way you come in with your vehicle, you can only be a tourist for 90 days. And this is why police, depends on the locality as well. Some police are a lot stricter, some police aren't so strict. We've seen sometimes in the years gone by, we've seen British cars driving around for 15 years. But as a general rule, if a policeman sees a vehicle for more than 3 months, they will then, even if it's legal, may be inclined to stop that and ask the situation of the person who's driving it, because if they've been in more than 3 months, in theory, they should be a resident. So I'd say it's 3 months that you've got to drive around under a tourist sort of a gaze before you have to start the registration process if you're in the process of getting your residency. Mm-hmm. If you come in as a resident can't have a foreign plated vehicle. What a resident has to do is they have to register straight away P plates, temporary plates, and those temporary plates last for 60 days, and then within those 60 days you've got time to register the vehicle.
Yep.
So that's my opinion on how long you've got.
I think it's got something to do with insurance as well, because if you're driving your UK car over, you're on holiday insurance to start with, holiday car insurance, and that can only last a certain length of time. So that's presumably 90 days there. So you'd have to get it registered then in order to get.
Of course you're right. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I suppose it's. I think the green card only, because I've never had a green card to go out of Spain. So I suppose the green card only lasts for 90 days. So you've got an insurance liability if you're more than 90 days of a vehicle in another country. Then I take it. So yeah. You're right.
I don't know how people have managed to drive that. It's happened in Ireland as well until very recently. There have been business, vans and things like that, registered, UK registered ones, and you're supposed to re-register within a month. It says 30 days, and the same with your driving license. But there are still people driving around on UK driving licenses and UK registration plates. It's a lot less now, but I guess the same is going to happen in Spain. It's just going to narrow it down, and they're going to check a lot more readily since Brexit.
Since Brexit, since the pandemic, you have to excuse me, let's get some water. Since Brexit with the UK cars, and since the pandemics sort of kicked in, because obviously before it was quite hard to control tourists, and there was quite a lot of EU and UK swallows who'd come for slightly more than 3 months and stuff. So it was hard to see who was really a tourist, who wasn't, and people have holiday homes here. Whereas now, until this week gone by, in theory, there shouldn't really be any tourists here. So when they're seeing foreign registered vehicles, they're like, well, they can't be tourists. They must have been here for more than 3 months. So that's where we're seeing a crackdown, really, on that.
I don't know how people have managed to keep their vehicles there for so long, really.
Well, I mean, a lot of the time, I don't know. Obviously, there's MOTs expire after a certain amount of time, so I don't know how that's worked. But there are companies here who will insure UK registered vehicles. Okay. So in theory, if they've got MOT tax and that, but I view my opinions on the 3-month things. Some people may challenge that, but I've seen. And I can tell you, I could probably show you one day a live of the Mijas compound where the cars which you picked up and taken and dumped are, and they're actually piling on top of each other. So we see the 3-month rule applied by the police, whether you like it or not. And I can tell you now, if you go and argue with them and say, "Oh, it's 6 months," then you forget it. They're just going to say, "Nah." Yeah. So
fair enough. Back to the process.
Okay, shall I move on to the lovely bit of the tax that you have to pay?
Oh, and very nice, yeah.
Because this relates a bit to Brexit as well. So when you've got your ITV test passed, okay, and you've got your lovely Ficha Technica in your hand, all right, depending on how old your car is, how long the periods are between the ITVs. If it's 10 years, it's over 10 years old, it's every year. Under 10 years old, it's every 2 years. Unless it's under 4 years old, then it's a year or something like that. New ones get 3 years from the time of registration or something. You then have to move on to the next stage, which is before you get to Trafico, registering the taxes, which is the fun bit. So the first thing, evidently, all cars have to pay road tax. The road tax is managed. First of all, it's managed individually by each town hall, ayuntamientos, we know them here in Spain. And then depending on the area you're in, there sometimes is a governing body which encompasses some of the town halls. So, for example, here in Malaga, we have the PRP, Patronato de Recaudación de Málaga. Now, some town halls are encompassed by that, and you have to go to one of their offices to register the taxes, which is great because it means if I've got a tax to register in Marbella, for example, we can visit the office here in Alarin and do it here. Other town halls like Alarin Grande, I'm just talking about Malaga here, Alarin Grande, Fuengirola, and Benalmádena, for example, manage their own tax affairs. So you have to specifically go to that place, or digitally go to them, as it is nowadays.
Yeah.
When registering a vehicle, they break the tax payments down into quarters. So if you register in the second quarter of the year, you're going to pay for the last 3 quarters, etc., etc. The following year, you'll then pay. The tax period runs from January to December, but you normally don't receive your tax bill till around April time.
Yeah.
So that's that. So you have to have your local tax paid. The next tax that you have to present when registering a vehicle is the special registrations tax. Now, special registrations tax is a document called a Modelo 576. So I hope everybody's taking notes here if they want to do it themselves. And you have to pay that at the tax office, and they do a calculation based on the age of your vehicle and the emissions rating, and you have to pay that special registrations tax. Some cars are free, depending on the emissions. There's quite a complicated table, which I actually keep here behind me the table. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, very nice. Good.
Yeah, I can keep that table behind me to calculate taxes quickly.
Can you send us a link to that so we can put it up in the comments?
Yes, I will do actually. Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
so you get reduction. See, there's a book price of the vehicle which is published in the BOE. That's then a reduction is applied to that for the age of the vehicle and then for the emissions. So some cars are under 121 grams don't pay it. Some 4x4s which are massive pay a lot. We are seeing now a big reduction in the amount of money that people are paying because as the years go on, the cars become more green, So,
Yeah.
so there's that. And this tax, again, going back to the change of residence, if you're recently taken residence in Spain and you can prove so, you may even be able to waive this tax, and that's by presenting a document called a Modelo 06. So when you complete either the 576 or the 06, you get what they call an NRC code, and that code is what you use to register at Traffico. It just basically proves that you've paid your taxes or completed your dues.
Is there any exemptions like we have in Ireland at the moment? If you've had the vehicle for longer than something like 9 or 10 months back in the UK before you import it, then you can get exemption from one of the taxes.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, to be able to, it's what I mentioned with the Modelo 06, which is if you're changing your residence, you have to prove two things: A, you've owned it for more than 6 months, and B, that you've changed your residence to Spain. So it'd be the same, I suppose.
Yeah, great. That's good to hear.
So, so that'd be that. And then it also brings us on to now the Brexit side of things, which is the import VAT and duty, which is applicable now. So any vehicle which is coming from inside the EU evidently doesn't have to go and complete its customs and excise process, whereas a vehicle from outside the EU does. Cool. So when that vehicle is processed, it's normally done by the agent who's assisting you in moving your worldly goods, or if you've driven over here, then you'd have to find an independent agent to do it for you. And again, for change of residence, they're very, very, very strict on the paperwork for this, but for change of residence, you should be able to waive the VAT and duty. And if you bring a car from a third country, then you have to pay the VAT and duty.
Okay.
They produce a document called a DUA, which this is a document which proves that you've paid your dues from a country, from a vehicle from a third country, and it's what we would use prove to Traffico that that's passed the process.
Okay, where do you get that one from?
And that's it. So in terms of taxes, that's it for the taxes. There's one more tax that I was going to mention was that in Spain we have a change of ownership tax. It's not free. So if you do change ownership of a vehicle at any point, if I buy a vehicle off my mate, even if I buy it off my wife, and we change the title holder of the vehicle, we have to pay transfer of ownership tax, the model 621, and that also applies to vehicle registration. So, say for example, I've got Skatz's car and I want to get it off of you, and the paperwork's in your name, and I've got a contract to prove I've bought it. Not only will I pay special registrations tax, I'll also pay a change of ownership tax as well.
Okay.
I'm a resident in Spain, so
yeah.
And that's it really. With all of that, you go to Traffico, and Traffico will register the vehicle. You have to prove evidently who you are at Traffico and that you've got an address in Spain, which is the best way to do that is to have a Padron certificate less than 3 months old.
Yep.
And then they give you a document which is called a permiso de circulación, and that is your ownership document. And with that, you can go to a specialist and get the plates made up, insure the vehicle, and drive happily.
Great. How long does all this process take?
It could take anything from, I always tell people 6 weeks because we're under the cosh with the ITV. So, if you could get an appointment straight away at the ITV, then you can take 2 weeks. But the ITVs take a while to get back to you. Then you've got to depend on Traffico once you've submitted the documents and stuff like that. So I always say to be safe, 6 weeks.
And if you're doing this for a customer, does which part does the customer have to do, and which part do you actually take the car in and get it all sorted?
If it's for change of residence, they have to come to the ITV station with us.
Okay.
They have to present themselves, signed, prove that they're here, change residence. If it's not for change of residence, then no, they don't have to. We could do everything from start to finish. And if there's any irregularities with the car, we always provide the green temporary plates as well, which allows you to drive it, insure it in Spain. So that's
right.
So that's a good one. And I was going to talk about how that's related now to UK cars with Brexit.
Yeah, go for it.
I think people will be interested in. So really, I can only comment on what's been happening here in Andalusia, because other areas of Spain have dealt with it slightly differently. So it's not across the board. But here in Andalusia, the ITV stations have come up with a rule that basically, now if you have to understand that a car from a third country, although it's got EU conformity and everything, is treated differently at an ITV station. You have to have extra documentation to pass that car because of the roots of its origin. Yeah. But here in Andalusia, they've said if it's a UK registered vehicle, and as long as it was registered before the 31st of December, and very importantly, the type approval number is on the logbook, then they will pass it through the ITV without the need for any further documentation. So that's good. We've actually had 2 vehicles from Valencia sent down because their criteria is slightly different. We passed the ITV, sent them back up. Now, in terms of how it's affected in Traffico, it's slightly different. They are considered now, when they come to the final registration, as vehicles from a third country, not an EU. So they're now requesting a DUA, the document we mentioned before, which was the import and export pass. Now, for the first 3 months of the year, they sort of gave a bit of a waiver period where they said, no, it's not a problem. As long as you've got a ferry ticket, you can register it. Then they suddenly stopped. So now all of our clients, before we can even get started, have to be dealt with by an import agent, and they can either A, provide documentation to prove that they've just taken residency recently and waive the tax, or B, pay the tax. So yeah, cool. That's how it's changed with UK registered vehicles.
All right. Is there anything else that people should think about before bringing their car over? I mean, isn't it just cheaper to sell your non-EU car before you set off for Spain and buy one there?
It depends. I mean, I would say, what I always say to people, first of all, evidently, all vehicles have to be conformed to left-hand drive. So if you've got headlights which are pointing the wrong way, etc., your fog light, reverse light, stuff like this, it all has to be left-hand drive approved. So, definitely check out the cost. The main cost is the headlights always. Though that said, again, this was a big problem 10 years ago. Now, 50% of the cars have a switch, or you can flatline the beam, or they're LED. So that's something to speak to the manufacturer about. And in terms of the cost, I always say, you want to go to Auto, one of these big. I'll give you the links to the websites. They're expensive in Spain, cars. People still find it better to register the car, spend the money, and have a car that they know and trust, than buying a second-hand one here. You'll find that second-hand cars in Spain generally tend to not be very well serviced and have 400 million miles on them and be really expensive. So just for example, I was looking yesterday at a 2013 BMW 3 Series convertible, and in Spain you're looking still at like 200,000 kilometers on the clock, 150,000 kilometers. You're looking at 13-14 grand. Wow. In the UK, I found them for like 4,995 with 95,000 on the clock, 50,000.
That's the big difference.
That's the big difference, So you've got to make your calculation and see if it's worth it for you.
It's not so much of a difference between Spain and Ireland, so it's not going to be a big leap for us, I don't think. We noticed that when we moved to Ireland, the cars are horrendously expensive, and the road tax here is just ridiculous. just for a Ford Galaxy, for example. 1.8 is something like 670 euros.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
That's-
ridiculous.
this is where people really have to look as well, because here you max out at around 200 euros on road tax. Doesn't matter. You've got Ferrari. I mean, once we get categorized on road tax, and once you get that top category, it goes no further. So, and each town has a different level of road tax. So some towns are cheaper, but even expensive places like Marbella and Benavis, I think, is quite expensive as well. Their maximum road tax is like 220.
Nice.
So if you're used to driving like a gas car, I did have a case of, so I don't obviously know too much about the tax in other countries, only here, but I had a guy tell me he was saving 800 euros a year or something on his tax because he had like a massive Land Rover. But I didn't know that.
Oh yes, I mean you can pay up to 2,000 on road tax if you've got a real gas guzzler big thing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, the size of the engine. If you're a 2.8 or a 3, or even bigger than that, yeah, ridiculous prices.
Blimey.
And there are still holes in the road, so I don't know where the money's going.
Well, that's crazy. I mean, there's one thing talking about Ireland, the north of Ireland, you can still bring vehicles without going through the customs process from Northern Ireland. It's still classed as part of the EU for those sense. So that's just something I just remembered when you're talking about Ireland there. That's
good to know.
British cars from North Ireland, only because I saw that the prices didn't seem to be that expensive in the north of Ireland when we're looking at cars there. They were quite cheaper, but yeah, that's it. Northern Irish cars can still come through and follow the normal protocol.
Yeah.
So,
cool. So we haven't had any questions on the chat about this today. So is there anything else we need to know before the 10 o'clock deadline?
No, I think that's it. I mean, obviously, if there's any questions, if there's no questions come through, can't answer them. So if any do come through, I'll be happy to answer them. It's not a problem.
So what should we do next time? We could talk about the Padron.
Yeah, we could talk about the Padron. The Padron, there's quite a lot of misunderstandings surrounding the Padron. So there might be an idea to chat about that and then try and plug something else in, because I might struggle to get half an hour out of the Padron, though I can talk, I know, but...
Fair enough. We'll work out something else.
Padron is something else. Put it out there. What do you want to know? Padron and something else.
Yeah, good one. Yes, listeners, don't forget to click on the like button as well, and subscribe and click on the bell as well. There, ding. And so we'll say goodbye to you, Chris. Thank you very, very much once again for your time and effort. And I must switch my picture around because otherwise it's going to end up just being on a blank screen. So, yes.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, everybody say goodbye to Chris. Goodbye. Okay, there you have it. If you've gained some insight on this video, like I said, click on the like thumbs up. Next week on YouTooSpain, I'll be talking to Stephen and Mandy Proctor, live from Granada province. Hello, Stephen and Mandy, if you're watching. Looking forward to speaking to them. They're full of fun. And I'll be asking them about buying and running a B&B in Spain. So there'll be a bit about property, and there'll be lots about whether it's a good idea to have a B&B. You'll find out what you need to know, and we're sure to have some laughs with them. So we've already made good friends on Facebook, and they're also friends with Chris as well. So this is how we're developing as Liz and I prepare to move to Spain. And have your questions ready then for next Saturday. Join us at the usual time of 9:30 if you're in the UK or Ireland, or 10:30 if you're in Spain, or if you're anywhere else in the world, then you'll have to work it out from there. And don't forget to check out the Liz and Skatz channel. There is a broadcast live every Wednesday evening about our journey to move to Spain, and it's all about health and weight loss and everything else that we've gone through over the last year. And it's a very special broadcast this week. We haven't actually broadcast for 3 or 4 weeks, I think it's been, since we did, because we've both been busy planning the Spain move. since my Irish citizenship came through. So the special broadcast is because we started the channel almost exactly a year ago. It was the 23rd of May. So that's a year ago tomorrow. And we'll be looking back at the incredible changes that have happened, and of course looking forward to our emigration to Spain later this year. So join us on Wednesday evening for that. Also check out YouTube Yoga, where you can have free yoga and meditation classes from Liz. And also YouTube Aromatherapy. That's all 4 of our channels, and we have t-shirts and other goodies for sale for all of those channels. All of our merchandise and all of those links to those channels can be found in the description below. So that is all for this week. Thank you all for tuning in, or if you're listening back, thank you all for listening back. And don't forget, please subscribe and click on the bell, ting, if you haven't already. And I will see you soon. Peace and love. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.